everybody. Bob Ufer here in the chilly snake pit of Columbus, Ohio.
Elliott has the first down and more, and Elliott's going to have a touchdown.
Corum, watch out! Blake Corum, blazing speed. Can he get there? No, but he's down at the Ohio State 11.
Samuel cuts it back. Ohio State wins.
Stroud in trouble, and Stroud is sacked again.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State, the game of the day, the game of the year, the game of the decade. Call it what you will.
This is The Rivalry, sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
This is the Rivalry Podcast. Jace, JP, your garbage-free college football podcast focused only on the Ohio State-Michigan football rivalry, on Twitter at RivalPod and on Instagram at 1049 The River. A big thanks to Elevated Integrity Construction, sponsoring season 4 of the podcast. Hard to believe we're on season 4.
That's crazy.
It's absolutely wild, but a big thanks to them. They do not only the construction, but the design element as well. Home build, church build, any sort of build. Maybe not any sort of build. I don't know. You'll have to talk to them yourself.
Can they build a football program? Because I have a program they'd like to speak to.
Even Elevated Integrity can't do that. Anyway, go with integrity. It's elevatedintegrity.com. Let's run a little wheel route to open up what I think is going to be a blast of an episode, given the way that Ohio State and Michigan shook out this weekend.
All right, here we go. It is pulled up, giving her the old spin. Let's see what we get.
Brought to you by Fiverr, also not a sponsor.
One day we will get one of these people to sponsor us.
One day we will.
They teach lessons, right? They can teach Rutgers how to run an offense, right? That's a class.
We've got to create a Fiverr account that says, I will teach your Rutgers football program how to run a pass.
Look, here's what you do. Stop. You just don't play.
Player you want to watch the most. Is that like this weekend or?
Sure, yeah.
We haven't specified
I don't think it needs to be limited.
Okay. I mean, Blake Corum? Is that too obvious? You said there's no stipulations here.
That's fair.
I want to watch Blake Corum continue his Heisman campaign. That's what I want to watch.
And he will. We'll get to that later. For me,
just say Cade Stover and move on with it. We know we know it's
in my heart of hearts. I assumed that people knew that about me by now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go Cade Stover. I'm going to throw. Actually, that's not true. I said this maybe the first episode of the podcast. I'm a huge hometown kid. I love rooting for those guys. Brennan Armstrong, quarterback of Virginia, has had a rough season. Last year, he was super dominant. I mean, basically one of the few offensive players for Virginia that could do anything. And it is even worse this year. I've seen a handful of games. He's got no help. I mean, he's doing it's like Justin Fields out there. He's doing everything. But I'm excited to just watch him. I feel like he's due for a game where he just absolutely erupts, and I just am really hoping for it.
Who's Virginia got this week? Do you know?
So hopefully somebody bad. I have not looked. I know they played North Carolina, and he actually had a decent game, and they almost upset him. I have no clue.
But you're excited to watch, and that's
I just want to see him. Virginia can lose. That's fine. But I just want to see him have an actual good game.
Let's talk about other teams that are struggling, shall we? The Rutgers played this weekend, and this is a combined Rutgers to any bowl segment, which I'm going to start there. Okay.
With Rutgers to the Rose Bowl?
We'll get into the analysis of Michigan Rutgers here in just a split second, but Rutgers has got the Rose Bowl thing instead.
Yeah.
Rutgers has got 3 games remaining.
Well, Rutgers can still go to the Rose Bowl. They just have to pay for a ticket like everybody else.
That's fair. That's fair. The Quick Lane Bowl is still in play.
Is it?
Maybe a little Bahamas Bowl action.
I think you have to win 8 games to be considered for that. It is going to be
that's the threshold, man. That's the threshold. You've got Penn State at the end of the year, which I'm just going to say that's not going to be it.
No, I think
you've got Michigan State and Maryland.
I think the exact order is Maryland, or not Maryland. It's Michigan State this week, Penn State, and then closing out the season with Maryland.
Yeah, and you've got to get 2 of those 3.
This upcoming weekend If they don't
massive.
win, it's over.
Oh, yeah.
If they don't win, it's over. You're not beating Penn State. You're not beating Maryland.
They are 10-point dogs right now in East Lansing. I don't know what to make of Michigan State right now.
Yeah.
Like they're trash. And Mel Tucker is signed to a 10-year, $95 million contract.
For those who have not listened to the podcast or watched it.
But also like Rutgers showed some flashes. So I don't know. I'm going to be the world's biggest Rutgers fan this weekend.
Stop it. We don't want you anymore.
That's so hurtful.
After the things said to me off air, absolutely not.
What happens in the group chat stays in the group chat and then becomes a podcast. It's great.
That's fair. And they get shared to the world. It's fine.
So Michigan just dismantled Rutgers this weekend.
In the second half.
That first half was
Michigan's trash.
No, that's not where this was going. I texted you at the half. Actually, we texted
We were talking throughout the first half.
You said, "Hey, going into the second half, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10?" And I said, "I am a 2." Because I could not understand how in the world Rutgers was in that football game. Statistically, Michigan was all over them, but that blocked punt was
the highlight of the Rutgers season, to be honest.
An absolute missed assignment by Michigan. I don't know what that was, but
Max Melton just flew.
Great play by Melton.
I mean,
great
so
play.
fast. So
you've got that. You have a special teams score. You have a field goal, and you have apparently the game plan was just throw the ball up and hope our guy can come down with it, and it was working.
Look, Sean Ryan was absolutely balling in the first half,
and then the second half happened, and once again, Jesse Minter, Jim Harbaugh just making phenomenal adjustments at the half. Michigan outscores Rutgers 38-0 in the second half. I think they scored 28 in the third quarter.
28 in the third.
I mean, and just foot on the gas the whole way. 52-17, the back half of that game. Yep. I don't know what to make of that, man. Like I'm not looking at that performance and being concerned on the Michigan side. The only thing I question is why did it take us to the half to figure that stuff out? That's been a theme for Michigan throughout the season.
Here's the thing I took away from this, because as a Rutgers fan,
you got Microsoft Teams message.
Oh, thank you, Abigail and Eric, who's a producer in here. There are numerous things I took away from this. I don't think any single person thought Rutgers was going to win this game, even at halftime.
No,
nobody thought this was going to happen.
No rational person.
I will say, Rutgers has had a tendency, whenever they play Michigan at a night game in Piscataway, for it to be an electric game most of the time throughout the entirety of it. I don't know. I don't want to give... Michigan came out and they won. They dominated the second half. Rutgers has been atrocious all year on offense. We had 14 rushing yards. I'm not going to give credit...
Is that good?
I'm not going to give credit to a defense for stopping an offense that doesn't really exist.
To a defense for holding you to 14 rushing yards?
No, because Rutgers doesn't have anybody. I think
have you watched that Michigan defense throughout the year?
Yes.
That's Michigan's defensive line in Rutgers.
Michigan's defense season has been good. It doesn't impress me looking at... I'm not going to look at the Rutgers box score and go, man, that defense was amazing, because I've seen how bad Rutgers offense is. I will say the three takeaways. Tell that to
Ohio State's defense. We'll get there in a second.
The three takeaways that Michigan got, one of those one of the interceptions by Wimsatt, I genuinely don't think was his fault. The other two, 100% inexperienced. Great. I will say the one corner that kind of ducked underneath the first interception, great, phenomenal heads up play by him. You're playing a dude in Gavin Wimsatt he was a 4-star recruit. Last year, he was legit playing high school football.
Yeah. He is
going to be fine. He showed flashes.
You could see the flashes.
He showed flashes. You guys played a really inexperienced quarterback with a very, very bad offense that has no offensive playmakers outside of him. I will say Blake Corum did Blake Corum things.
Yeah.
Michigan did what they should have done the entire game.
Yep.
The thing that I will say, and we've talked about it in Ohio State, is something that they struggle with. Michigan can't go up against a good team and have a bad first half like that.
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
The second half adjustments are going to keep them in some games, but we watched it against Michigan State now. We've seen it against Iowa. We've seen it against Penn State. We've seen it against Rutgers.
I guess that's where I disagree a little bit. And I wish I had it in front of me, but if you go back and look at, and I wish to God I could find the tweet, but someone had laid out, hey, here's the halftime scores of each of Michigan's Big Ten games.
They outscored, I think it was like 100-3.
They've all been super close, and then the second half, final scores blew them out of the water. So I don't disagree with you, but where I disagree is a game like Penn State, where Penn State's a good football. I mean, both Ohio State saw that a couple weeks ago. A good football team that Michigan lets be in the game at halftime, but still it didn't matter at the end of the day. Now, I think it's a different animal when you get to Ohio State.
And that's what I'm talking
about.
But
Ohio State has also had some sluggish starts. So for Michigan, I'm looking at this and I'm not going to be concerned until they give me a reason to be concerned.
Yeah.
Corum and Edwards did their thing. I'm not buying the JJ McCarthy's not very good. He doesn't have to be great.
Yeah,
he absolutely doesn't have to be. Now, I think there's something to be said about your receivers making sure that they get open, making sure they hold on to the ball. Michigan is going to do the same game plan that they've done for 9 games this season. They're going to do it in the final 3 games and beyond if they get more. That's what it's going to look like. The one thing that I will say I was really, really pleased with, and then we'll stop talking about Rutgers because my goodness.
Please.
Was the red zone issues. The red zone execution for Michigan has been a problem spot this year. We talked about it last week. And Michigan did a great job of getting touchdowns out of red zone drives. I don't remember what the official stats were. I don't know if they got every single one. I think they may have missed one. But even if you're going to go, oh, it took them 4th down, on the goal, 4th and goal twice.
7 is 7.
You got into the end zone.
Yeah, you're not settling.
There are a number of Michigan fans that were complaining about how is it taking us 4 tries from the one. Because you only have to go 1 yard and you're going to stack the box.
Which is
Y'all
ridiculous.
must be a lot of fun at parties.
Rutgers fans are the same way, but they're the opposite. They're over there celebrating with the loser mentality where
we held them to 4th down.
I crack jokes all the time about Rutgers, and so I get it. But I also would never seriously go out and tweet and say, hey, at least it took them 8 times to score 7 points instead of 3.
No,
you gave up 7 points. You gave up 7 points. Loser mentality. Get that weak stuff out of here.
Michigan's got Nebraska this week, and
gross.
I both feel bad for not spending a lot of time analyzing this.
ABC game,
but I'm also
for Nebraska.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time analyzing this.
As you shouldn't.
Nebraska is terrible. Nebraska's a bad football team.
In my notes for top players for Nebraska, I just wrote corn. The best part about it.
Would you say it has the juice?
They don't, but it does.
For Michigan, one of the things I'll put it this way. One of the things I'd like to see from Michigan against Nebraska is I'd like to see us air the ball out more. Just so that I can stop more, not because I'm concerned about, but because I'd like to stop hearing about how Michigan is just a run only team. I've got news for you. They're just going to run the ball.
It's going to be boring.
Why would you give Nebraska a chance to, get off the field quickly, give them a chance to create turnovers? Why would you not hand it to Blake Corum? And frankly, Blake Corum's having this season splitting carries with Donovan Edwards. My goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan is going to just run the ball down their throats. I'm not going to belabor the point. 49-10. Michigan, this game will not be close.
We're actually pretty close. I have 56-10. I'm the same boat as you.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's all I'm saying.
Corum's worked all year long until somebody can prove that they can stop him. Why are you going to go away from that?
It's Corum.
I am like you. I would love to see them open up the playbook a little bit more for McCarthy and see him sling it for 300 something yards. It's not going to happen. There's no part of this game that's going to exist where that happens. They're going to run it with Corum and Edwards. If they have to, they're going to throw it. I don't even think McCarthy's going to get over 200 yards passing because he's not going to have to. He's going to throw the ball low 20s, complete 15 to 17 of them. They're going to be short little.
And that's where, again, we say this every week, but box score watchers drive me crazy because technically Rutgers outpassed McCarthy. Winne said outpassed McCarthy.
Gross.
Michigan also outgained them 1,000,000,000.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work that
way. A little
way.
spicy take for you, though. I have Blake Corum as my Heisman finalist now. He's going to take it home this year. I think after this weekend.
Look at the way that, and this can be a good transition into Ohio State, but look at the way that Georgia handled Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
That's, again, you talked about this last week, and I think it was really good. You talk about Heisman moments in big games.
Yep. Didn't have it.
And absolutely didn't have it against Georgia. Now, Hendon Hooker's still a phenomenal quarterback,
great player.
Georgia handled
it. You look back on the Heisman winner and you can pinpoint 2 or 3 games where he carried the team. He might not have been like the reason, but it's
the most valuable player to your team.
Yeah.
And look at what Corum's done again in big games against Michigan. Regardless of record, big rival, Michigan State, Penn State, like those big time games where it's like we relied on you to get this done and just went ham. And there's CJ Stroud this weekend. We'll talk about the weather here in just 10 seconds, but did not look great. He did good. He made some nice plays, but it was not a Heisman type of game that you wanted to see.
No, and we'll get into that because I agree. But
so I agree with you on the Corum thing. Let's go to Ohio State.
It's not just a game, it's the game. You're listening to The Rivalry.
Yeah, we're going to get into this Ohio State game. I'm going to preface this because we just talked about it. While, yes, I agree that CJ didn't have a great game, I would not say he had a bad game. And I don't want this to come across. I want to preface this by saying weather absolutely impacts the game.
Yes, agree.
It definitely impacted CJ. I mean, he's the quarterback. It's not like Corum where you can go and run the ball. What CJ is brought in there to do is to throw the ball. And when you have 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts, it's going to affect that. I'm not going to sit here and say that he lost the Heisman on this game. No. Because I do think weather impacted that. He didn't have a great game statistically, although he did have 70-something rushing yards.
Which, okay.
Running back one.
That's what Ohio State has wanted to see for 2 seasons now, is use your legs, kid.
Yeah. Mayan Williams had 100-something yards. I think it was like 111. Yeah. Kind of an underwhelming performance in my mind. Yeah. It didn't seem like he had 100-something. This game all around, the sloppiest game Ohio State has played all year. But I will say, and I know you're going to agree with this.
You don't know anything.
Because it's going to come across as a little bit of Ohio State hate.
Nice. And I know. Yeah, I'm on board. Here we go.
Northwestern, to me, showed the recipe for how to beat Ohio State.
Stop reading my notes. I wrote blueprint on my notes.
We've talked about different teams throughout the season, and we've talked about it with Michigan, where I've said I wanted to see a weak point in their armor. And I think we've kind of found that a little bit, but it never as glaring as this Ohio State game, where I think Northwestern, they just didn't have the talent overall to keep up with them for 4 quarters, and it showed. I think, and part of this does play into the weather because they took away the passing game. It wasn't Northwestern doing that. It was 50-mile-per-hour winds gusting through.
Yeah, definitely an advantage for Northwestern. No doubt.
They took that part. I mean, that part of the game wasn't prevalent throughout the entirety of it. Yeah. But Northwestern did what they needed to do. They came in, they managed the clock.
Yep.
I think, what was it? I wish I would have kept track of this, but it was something where like Ohio State had the ball for like 8 minutes compared to 20-something for Northwestern. Like they were just completely dominating the clock.
Yep.
And they were running the ball well. And then when they needed to, because they were running the ball so well, they were able to convert some third downs that were third and shorts.
Yep.
To me, that is the recipe for beating Ohio State. Is you've got to be able to run the ball well, which Evan Hull did. You've got to be able to take away the time that the offense that is dynamic and is really, really good, that they can go out there and hurt you.
Yep.
And that is what Northwestern did. They just didn't have the talent to keep up with them for 4 quarters.
I think that's really good. I think that's a fair analysis because I'm with you that the weather is a huge factor in this game. But I said this very saltily, but I do mean this. The wind did not outgain Ohio State's offense. Like this, Northwestern ran for 200 yards on Ohio State's defense. A defense that, and it's like, well, yeah, but the defense knows it's coming.
They were not hiding it.
You can, it's a literal wildcat formation.
They're doing the same thing that you're doing, dog. Like it is 50-mile-per-hour winds. Northwestern's not throwing it.
Northwestern outgained you. They ran for 200 yards when you knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. And this game was 14-7 with 5 minutes to go. I don't care what the weather looks like. Northwestern's a terrible football team.
1-8 at the time, right?
Terrible. Something like that.
1-7, I think.
They lost to a FCS school earlier this year.
They hadn't won a game since the very first game of the season, and it was in Dublin.
Like that's not on the wind.
They didn't even win a game in this country this season.
They have not won a game on North American soil, but here they are with the ball in the fourth quarter with the chance to go tie the game or take the lead. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that this game is anti-CJ Stroud at all. I mean, he's not going to throw the ball like that. He made some good plays with his legs. I think you can be proud of that. The concern for me, if I'm an Ohio State fan, or the licking your chops if you're Michigan, is Ohio State's run game and Ohio State's run defense.
Yep.
The run game, not strong. Even in a game where you are forced to run the ball, it was fine.
It wasn't great, things,
and the run defense was not good.
It's one of those things where I watch Ohio State's running backs, and Henderson obviously didn't play. We're still missing Smith and Jigba. I think both of those hurt.
Agree.
Mayan Williams got roughed up against Penn State. He was taken out of that game because he was hurt. Part of me is wondering if that played a little bit of a factor, but I don't want that to be an excuse. Because he was still out there. He still has to perform. You're still playing a 1-7 Northwestern team. He still had 100-something yards. I think his average was like 4 yards a carry. Yeah. There were numerous times where he could have just, because he's a bigger bodied running back, he could have just ducked his head and just ran straight, run vertically. And he kept continuously trying to break it outside, and Northwestern got to him. And it was so frustrating to watch because I'm thinking there were 3rd and shorts that Ohio State could have picked up if he lowers his head and just goes across the line.
That to me is maybe the what's it called? Like the microcosm of what the issue was on 3rd and short. And you can't gain a yard or two against Northwestern. Yeah. That's how, like, regardless of who you're playing, that's how you lose football games. It's the same thing for Michigan. It's the same thing for Ohio State. So on the Michigan side, you're looking at that going, man, I feel like Corum Edwards could have themselves a day. We'll see, because again, barring 50-mile-an-hour winds, CJ's going to sling the ball around. I think you're going to see CJ throw a butt ton. That's, again, the official term, a butt ton.
A butt ton.
Against
it's an actual measuring system.
I think Ohio State knows how that game looked. And I was actually fairly pleased with a lot of the beat writing that said, yeah, the wind was a big factor. This was not a good look.
Yeah, I
was pleased that there was at least some ownership there, because as a rival, I typically go, man, you guys are just full of excuses. I felt like there was some good ownership there from the media side of things. I think Ohio State's got stuff to prove. God bless Indiana. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly this weekend. I've got 49-10 as well.
We are so close on all of our 49-17. I've been going. I realized that I've been going significantly low on all of the scores that I've been having to other teams. Like, I think I even said, and people destroyed me this weekend because I said Northwestern wasn't going to score a touchdown in any universe.
Thank you for saying that. They did.
And they did. And so I thought, you know what?
So you're just giving some extra points.
I'm giving some extra points for my sanity.
Bazelak is awful. And Indiana's blueprint is, can you run the football? The answer is no. No, they cannot, because they're Indiana. Make sure you share your score predictions, by the way, on Twitter at RivalPod or on Instagram, 1049 The River. We've got an Amazon gift card we'd love to give you. Again, predictions don't have to be good. They just have to be predictions for this week's games.
You've heard ours.
And we'd love to have you be part of that. All right, before we get into the college football playoff rankings, which again, full disclosure, these episodes come out Wednesdays at noon. This is being recorded Tuesday morning.
Well, and if you follow us at Rival Pod, we last week tested this out, but you can join us on our Twitter account. We're going to be doing a Spaces after they actually come out with the rankings.
So know that when we are projecting, we are not projecting in the past, and you're trying to go, why, what are you? Okay, that's what's going on.
Super wrong, yeah.
Before we get there, though, stupid genius pick of the week. We've got it right. Can we just...
Look,
we both got it right.
Notre Dame
over Clemson. The fraudulent Clemson.
The Notre Dame team that Ohio State beat. That was only for Bill, the president. He told us that we had to say that. So
Notre Dame's still not good. They still lost to Stanford. Okay,
neither is Clemson.
So here's my. I've been giving you the deference of going first on this. I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Today. There is an easy upset pick of the week, and there's a spicy one.
Spicy? I want a spicy all day.
Here's the easy one. The easy one would be Texas over TCU. Texas is actually favored.
I know what you're picking.
Texas is actually favored by 7. That would be the smart pick.
I know what you're picking.
That's
I've got the same thing.
Texas is going to win that game. I don't think anyone questions that.
Horned Frogs, isn't this their thing?
I
think it's this. I think it's this. Is that even a frog? That is like a claw, a little claw, like an eagle claw.
That little face I just made is going to be all over TikTok.
Yeah, you should not have instant regret.
The media. Here's the spicy pick. The spicy pick would be Mississippi State over Georgia.
Okay. Not happening, but okay.
Mississippi State is 16.5-point underdogs. Here's the reason why I'm tempted to pick this. Georgia just came off a phenomenal, a near perfect game against Tennessee. Geared up for it, high energy, whatever. On the road at Mississippi State, the annoying cowbell thing. It's just, this is the epitome of a trap game for me, because it's not even like TCU going to Texas where it's like everyone's kind of going, yeah, this could be. That's not a trap game. That's just a big game that you know is coming. This is a game that I think is genuinely a trap game. Georgia shouldn't lose to Mississippi State.
Nope, and they won't.
But primetime, that would be the spicy pick. So Texas over TCU is my pick for a stupid genius pick of the week because I can't take Mississippi State as much as I'd like to.
How dare you? How I want to start this off. My spicy pick?
Are you going Hogs?
I'm going Hogs, baby, over LSU. Woo. No, you don't get to. You didn't pick them, and this is your helmet.
Big Suey.
Your wife's family.
They were just here, too. I'm actually going to the Arkansas Ole Miss game here in a couple weeks.
Woo Pigs over LSU.
I like it. That will never happen. Let me tell you.
Except for Saturday when it does.
Quick story. So my in-laws were in town this weekend, and I got to watch the Arkansas Liberty game with my father-in-law. And with my brother-in-law texting us. Mega stress.
Oh, yeah.
And Arkansas, having sat down to watch the most Arkansas football that I've watched this year, because I respect myself. Yikes. Yikes. That said, I'd love for them to beat LSU. I think that would be great. Am I allowed to? No. I'm just going to leave that there.
No.
Okay. Final thing here. College football playoff predictions. Big shakeup this weekend.
Yeah.
Number 1 goes down.
So many upsets all around
Alabama
the board in the top
down,
25.
Clemson goes down. Who's your top 6? Not the order that you think they will be in, or
who do I think personally?
Who do you personally have in your top 6?
So I've got Georgia 1.
Okay.
Ohio State 2.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan 3.
Mm-hmm.
Horned Frogs 4.
This is where it gets a little spicy.
Yeah, this is where I'm a little bit iffy. I will go Tennessee at 5. And then for 6, I think Clemson's a fraud, so I'm not even going to put them. I'm going to put Alabama still at 6.
The actual heck is wrong with you.
I still think they're better. I think
they lost 2 games.
I still think they're better. You asked not who I think it's going to be, who I personally think are the 6th.
And you personally think a 2-loss Alabama team
I personally
is still
think
the 6th ranked team in the country.
I personally think Alabama team with 2 losses would absolutely massacre undefeated TCU. So I'm going off of the 6 best teams. I just feel like TCU needs the credit. Last time that they went undefeated, we were actually talking about this on the way to Penn State.
Hate this so much.
The last time TCU went undefeated in a season, they didn't get...
That was Andy Dalton, right?
Yeah, it was Andy Dalton. They did not get any sort of help from the committee back then. I mean, it wasn't the playoffs, but they didn't get even a mention for getting put into the championship game. They went out and they beat a really, really good Wisconsin team in the Rose Bowl, and they played out of their minds. I just personally, I think there are a lot of teams that would beat them head to head. I would just love to see some TCU Horned Frogs in the playoffs. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That's not my issue, my guy. My issue is Alabama at 6.
Who's better?
So I've got Georgia at 1. That's pretty non-negotiable. I don't think they'll do this, but I think Michigan's number 2 right now.
Of course.
Based on the way that last weekend, and for all the reasons that we just laid out, who is a better football team overall? I think it's Michigan.
I would hope you would think that.
I've got Ohio State at 3. TCU is at 4. No question about it. Tennessee is at 5. I want to drop them further, but your only loss is to Georgia. Yeah. I don't know what else to do. I've got LSU at 6. I don't. Alabama lose. Clemson is a fraud.
LSU has 2 losses.
Yeah, but they beat Alabama. Oregon got dismantled by Georgia. Absolutely destroyed by Georgia
early.
And I was a big believer in USC. I'm not anymore.
What about UCLA? 1 loss.
I've got LSU. I think LSU just proved that they belong in the conversation because they beat a team in the conversation. So we'll see. Here's the thing is that it both doesn't matter right now, but where it gets spicy is these teams like, and we said this last week, the teams like LSU, the teams like Oregon, the teams like USC or UCLA, whoever comes out of that rivalry game at the end of the week or at the end of the season, that's where those rankings really, really matter. For Michigan and Ohio State, I will say, like, I don't remember the source for this, but someone had projected that with Alabama losing, that there's now like a greater than 50% chance of Michigan and Ohio State both getting into the playoff.
I think it would be awesome.
Imagine for a second how many years off your life you would lose with a Michigan-Ohio State rematch for a national title. That's an actual possibility. Never.
That is a bucket list dream matchup because I would absolutely love to crush those dreams. I would love it. Oh, the podcast the next day after an OSU victory.
We might just have to cancel the podcast
Chef's kiss.
if that happens.
I would be here for. I'll Zoom you in. It's
Many
fine.
people are saying right now that you should cancel the podcast anyway, and that's fair.
Probably true.
In the meantime, before Elon Musk blocks us on Twitter forever and dismantles our account, could we get verified? Could we pay $8 to get verified?
Send us $8 and we'll do it.
We absolutely cannot request money right now. Anyway, follow us on Twitter at RivalPod, even though we're unverified. On Instagram at 1049 The River. Enjoy games this weekend.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter at RivalPod for live tweets, score predictions, contests, and more. And make sure to follow us wherever you're listening now for new episodes every Wednesday. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.